gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing this giant box. It is Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice. Now, this is published in conjunction with Ubisoft, the creators of the video game series, by Triton Noir, and it is designed by Manuel Rozoy, Thibaud de la Touanne, and Fabrice Lamidey. Yes, they are all French names and French pronunciations.
That's the reason why it's Triton Noir.
Yes, Black Trident. It is a local designer, which is very cool. So designed, Ubisoft's local too. So all the work that was done on this is local in Montreal, Quebec. So that's pretty cool for us. We're always happy to support someone that is from the neighborhood. Now, Julie, tell them more about the game itself.
So this is a cooperative game that is for 1 to 4 people, ages 14 and above, and it plays in 30 to 60 minutes.
So what do you think about that age range?
I think it's appropriate. I mean, anytime you have 14 and above, it can be probably 12 and above, 13 and above.
The actions are simple enough that you could probably go much younger. That being said, this is a strategic game, which we'll talk about when we get into our review, and you definitely want to be playing with a teen, or if you're playing with someone that's younger that really enjoys strategy, because you got to sneak around the map and stab some people, because that's what you do in Assassin's Creed.
You assassinate people.
Yes. This is a re-implementation of V Commandos, which was the first game by Triton Noir. So if you enjoy that, you will probably enjoy this one. Now, I gave you a little bit of a hint as to what you're doing in the game, but I'll give you a breakdown. You will be joining the Brotherhood of Assassins. You will take on the role of one of 4 different assassins that are included in the base box. Each assassin has their own special abilities and skills. You're going to be going on missions to thwart the machinations of the Templars in Venice. So you'll be moving around the city, going on different scenarios. You need to be stealthy, because if you're found out, things will go very badly for you and your fellow assassins. You must then complete your objectives using stealth as best as possible in order to win the scenario. And just like the Assassin's Creed video game, you have some challenges to get that 100% sync with the memories. If you're not a fan of the video games, that makes 0 sense to you. But if you're just getting to this, for the first time, this is your first experience with Assassin's Creed, I don't want to spoil it for you. The memory thing makes a whole lot of sense when you get to that point. And I did peek at it in the campaign book, so they do explain it. That's why I'm going, keeping my mouth shut. Now, what time is it, Julie?
Well, it's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
We're going to take it to the table one more time.
One more time. Let's play this last...
Well, we'll have to move this, though, but...
Yeah, most definitely. We're going to play the last scenario for the first part of the campaign, and then we're going to come at you with our review. If you're wondering where the how to play and the components are, well, that's going to be in a separate video that'll be coming out in a few days. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and we're going to, start assassinating people. Rah! Well, not quite like that. You want to do it in the shadows. Sneakily, like, you didn't see me. Stab, stab, stab. So, Julie, what did you think of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice?
Well, let's start with some of the positives. I really like the table presence. I mean, look at that tower. I could probably hide behind it. Actually, me, not just my
we can also hide behind the box. Peekaboo.
So it's got great table presence, and the minis are pretty cool.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really high quality and detail. You can't see it from here, but you'll be able to see the minis up close when we do our how to play video. That will be coming out in probably, a few days, maybe next Tuesday. Not quite sure yet. When we do, we'll have a link to it at the end of the video.
Yeah, somebody's birthday's coming up, so he's going to be a little bit busy. So, for the dice, I mean, I like most of them. I don't understand what they were thinking with the marble dice with the yellow on it.
Why don't you show them why there's the yellow? I mean, each character has their own color, like Bassiona's black.
Yeah, she's like a taupe gold. But anyways, it didn't come out very well on the dice, especially with the marble color in it. They would have had to go with another color. Anyways, That's just me. From a visual standpoint, I wasn't too impressed with that.
It's not great, it's not bad, but I do agree with Julie. It could have been better. The unfortunate thing is all the other dice look really good. I mean, even with the marbled feature, if they'd gone with a different color, but I'm wondering if that would have just made the black, the green, and the blue not look as good.
Yeah, in any case, that's just a little thing.
So I just want to clarify, because we did not show off the components. We did get the all-in, so these are the dice pack. The standard dice are just white and red Assassins die. So that's just a comment as to what we have for the game.
So when it comes to the player boards, they're not horrible, but I got spoiled a little bit what we have with Zombicide, and how everything is so nicely kept there. I was like, well, my backpack is like the cards just move around, but yeah. So the cards, you got to place them properly, and they move around, but they have a spot. So I mean, I'm just being finicky.
Well, you know what? This is a very lavish production, so I'm not going to let you call yourself finicky at this point. I think something like a dual layer player board instead of the standard ones. Well, heck, these are dual layer player boards. You got little spaces for your cubes so they don't move around. It would have been nice to have an extra layer. It's already there for the cards. If the cards were just a little recessed, it would have been more difficult for them to move around. So I do agree with you on that point. I mean, we don't need plastic trays like Zombicide, but a teensy bit higher production value would have gone a long way.
So beyond that, the gameplay itself, this is one of these games that I really want to like, because Jason's been talking about it for a long time, and he really likes the IP. He played the video game. It's a cooperative game, so I really thought this could be pretty cool. What I'm going to say is the tutorial, although well designed to help you learn the game, is not so short as to just show you the game, and then there's quite a few. There's 4 or 5.
It's 4 missions, and you can literally. Sorry to interrupt. The first tutorial missions you can basically almost play on like 15 minutes. I think the setup for the missions is actually longer than the tutorial itself. So,
in any case, the tutorial through the 4 missions of the tutorial, and then starting the campaign. Like, even in the first couple of campaign missions, I was bored. Honestly, it wasn't pulling me in. It got a little bit better with the last couple of missions. That being said, I feel really my hands are tied when it comes to the actions. It's a very tactical game. You can pretty much map it out ahead of time to know what you have to do. And there's not a lot of flexibility with what you get to do compared to a lot of other games you get to play. So for me, I was just like, yeah, it's not a bad game. I just honestly wish I could like it more for you so that I would enjoy playing this. I can't say I'll never play it again, but it just doesn't excite me. It just doesn't pull me in. I don't like the tactical aspect of it. I don't like that, because of the fact that you've played this game before and the way your brain works, it basically means that you're like, yeah, I can see that, 5 moves ahead, this is what's going to happen. So,
well, you can see that a little bit, but you're still guessing. There's some random elements that I strongly dislike about this game, and we'll get into that in a moment.
So basically, to finish my thoughts, and then I felt like I was kind of here, but you could have played the 4 characters on your own. And I didn't really feel like I was bringing a lot to it. And I didn't really feel like the tactical element was something that I was really all that interested in. So, yeah, I'll give my final thoughts on the review, but that's my thoughts of the game.
Well, you touched on something, and I actually do think it's a strength of the game, not necessarily negative. Julie's right. I could easily play all these characters by myself, because the actions and what you're doing essentially is very simple and straightforward. Now, there are a lot of teeny details that once you get used to, for example, on the different cards, some of them may trigger the alert, some of them won't, like your throwing knives that I'm holding right here will not trigger the alert. And as we got more of those, I definitely felt that the game improved, because when the alert triggers, it can get really nasty, but you're essentially moving, attacking or trying to do hide a body or doing one of the other actions that is present on the board. And the great thing about that is, let's say you own the game, you have a few friends that are interested. Now there is a story. I'm not going to give them a lot of credit for a very deep story. It's fairly surface level, but still interesting. That means if you're into it but your friends aren't, but they enjoy the game, you can keep playing without them. They can drop in and drop out, just taking control of the assassins. And the way the game is designed, so that you can even take assassins from any of the expansions, drop them in. Well, at least the characters from the Roma expansion, the Tokyo 21 expansion, which is set in the present day. Don't think you can really bring them back in time. Well, if you want to, you can. But it's pretty cool in that regard with regards to how it all works in terms of the mechanics of the game and just the ease of play. However, I'm going to agree with Julie on this point. I feel like there is definitely a problem because the game is a little simple and straightforward in terms of what you're doing. You don't have a ton of options, at least not until you get a vast set of gear and some good equipment. Because if you're going to attack with a sword, you're going to essentially set off the alarm, meaning that more guards are going to come, and that's really going to restrict what you can do and realistically how much time you have left to complete the mission. I would say that you have roughly about 5 or 6 turns to complete a mission if you do not trigger the alert. And that depends on what you're doing, but every time we've played, when we had, I would say, arguably almost a flawless one, it's been about that 5 or 6 turns in order to get through it. Now, if you trigger the alert, it's going to be a lot less because you essentially get double the amount of guards. And one of the lost conditions is having no more guards to place on the board. We actually didn't complete our last mission fully because we just drew the last card because we were in the position, as you can see here, to get out with the fast travel station. And what happened was we just saw that we didn't run out of guards and we won. So that was really fun. But if we'd gotten an alert, we were dead. Even if we're having a good one, like we'd lost and we have to redo the mission. So if this is something that you do not want to do, you don't want to be going back and replaying missions potentially at least twice to master it, you may not like this game. The way the headquarters works, I have to say, is actually pretty cool. I liked it. It's thematic to Assassin's Creed, being able to ally with the courtesans or the mercenaries feels very much like the game. The video game, to be clear. But there are some limiting aspects to it as well, like you have to heal your characters, which can be fun, it's not really all that fun. You do get to build some new gear, and while it's a cool element to do and you've got a board and you can place your miniatures on it, I feel it's kind of superfluous. You don't actually need it. They could have done it with less components and in a way that's less time consuming. Now the gameplay time for the game is 30 to 60 minutes, and that's actually true, even with 4 players, so I gotta give them full credit on that. You can play each mission rather quickly. I think we were clocking at the end there around, 45?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So there are a few things that I do find to be a little annoying. Now, there was only one equipment card to reset the alert so far that we've gotten, and we've been very lucky. We haven't had to use it recently, even when we triggered the alert. But I would like to see more options to give more flexibility. I do have 1 or 2 other things I want to mention on the negative side, but before I go too much further on that, I want to say this game is incredibly thematic to Assassin's Creed. It does feel like you're in the world of Assassin's Creed. You can go up the tower, you've got the hidden blade, you've got the weapons, you've got the Brotherhood of Assassins. Everything looks and feels right. So in terms of the theme and adapting the game mechanics to the table, they did a great job. Now, this ties into the alert factor again, because in Assassin's Creed 2, if you were really in trouble, you could just run and run and run and run. Sure, you may end up far away from your objective, but guess what? The alert status went away and you could go back and try your mission. That's something that is not present in the game, and I get why you need that loss condition, but it definitely really bothers me, because we lost the mission because we just ran out of guards. The alert went off early and we were swarmed. We were essentially fighting, trying to hide bodies to get things back into the pool, and the game was just essentially throwing miniatures at us and enemies the entire time, and it just really wasn't fun. And to go back to Julie's point about someone being able to essentially like map out the game, you could essentially math out the game, because on all of your attack die, you've got a 33% failure rate, and then once the alert is triggered, you've got a 33% chance to trigger the alert. This symbol here will only trigger the alert, or have you found, if you're already in the a different state. So that was, it's you got a good chance that it's going to go off, meaning you have certain things you want to do. The event cards will tell you which way the enemies are going. So as Julie said, sometimes she'd want to be like, oh, I'm going to go fight. And I'm like, but those guards are going to come in. There's going to be 3 of them. The chances that they see you and the alert goes off early, it's probably going to happen. Meaning that this game has a serious alpha gamer problem, because there is definitely a best way to do it. And the reason why I say it's a problem is you're going to work together, you're going to try to talk it out, but at a certain point, if people don't make a solid decision or what is potentially the best decision, you will lose or be in a very bad position immediately afterwards. So as Julie's saying, you got to have the right people to play the game, people that like strategy, that like sneaking around, because if that's not your thing, if you want to have more options, it's a little tough in the early go. Now, I found it got better once you got your weapon for Alessandra, the Spear of Leonidas, meaning that you could attack characters without setting off the alarm. We've now got a bow on Bastiano. We can shoot at enemies without necessarily triggering the alarm. They might move into a space and detect him, but you still have more options, and I'm feeling the game is getting better with these options, but I would have liked to have them a little bit earlier in the game, because it does feel a little bit restrictive. And I'm going to ask you something, because it's going to go straight to the value of the game, and we don't always talk about this, but we're trying to talk about it more often. To buy just this box is quite expensive. So this box itself is $300 Canadian. What do you think of that price point for what we've got here?
I mean, you have, including all the towers and those things?
So the towers came with the Kickstarter. We got 2 towers. It was part of the Kickstarter. We got special pricing on a lot of the stuff. So I paid probably close to that, a little bit more because of shipping for that, 3 expansions, 2 towers, and the dice. So I might have paid like $100 more for the whole thing. And I only spent that much because I love this IP, especially Assassin's Creed 2. First video game I ever got the 1000, like the full gamer score and everything.
I wouldn't pay that much, honestly. There are plenty of other games that I would rather play. But you are getting a lot in the box. So if you like the IP, there is a lot in the box. To be fair, most of the time I don't know how much Jason spends on games, and it's probably better that way. So it's a little difficult for me to comment on the value.
Well, I can put it into a little bit of context, and this is surely more expensive now, but Journeys in Middle-earth was a little less than half that, and we got Descent Legend of the Dark for half that price.
Yeah, both of those games by far a lot more, I think, for it. So
yeah, I definitely think that you're not quite getting the full value for this at retail, so that's something that you want to consider. If you can find a Kickstarter copy, they are being sold for a lot of money. And I do think if you're a fan of V Commandos, haven't played it, but you like the tactical, silent moving aspect of the game, I think you're going to enjoy this. And there is a lot to like. The minis look great, the value as well. This is a great translation of the game. I find that there's just a few mitigating aspects with the video game, like the ability to just run away and come back, that the game doesn't quite capture. But I get it. They want to have this really tense experience. But, one bad roll early on, you might get another bad roll, and you could be looking at the map being like, why don't we just restart this? Because the chances of you completing it, well, it's not going to go in your favor. Now, that being said, the playtime is quick, so it may not bother you, but you do only get 2 attempts, so if you do fail it twice, you're supposed to just fail forward, and you won't be able to do as much stuff. So I think I've talked enough about the game itself. I'm going to toss it over to Julie so she can give you her score for Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
You want me to go first, huh?
I want you to go first, yeah.
This is a 6.5 for me. It's a 6.5 and not a 6 because I think the components are pretty cool. I'm not getting the enjoyment factor out of it. It's definitely a pass. It does, it does what it's supposed to do. It's just not, when I compare it to games that I've given a 7 or a 7.5 or an 8 to, it's just not there for me.
And for me, this is a 7. I'm definitely starting to go in the other direction, but I would have to say that my frustrations with the early game are still very present. Also, Julie not enjoying it as much is something that I definitely take into consideration. And the alpha gamer problem, which is something that I can do at times. And typically what works very well with us is when a game like Descent, it's much more collaborative. I might be like, I think this is the best idea. Then I start talking through it and Julie will be like, no, we should do this and this because of these things that you didn't see. And I'm like, oh, right, perfect. But in this case, because everything is very present and mathematical, it's very rare that there isn't like a best thing to do. Julie definitely corrected me in this being like, hey, don't forget those cards there. Oh, you can't do this from a canal, remembering some of the rules. So we did work together, but at a certain point in time, there wasn't a lot of give and take to say in this, because when I would be like, I don't think that's a good idea, we'd go through the reason, and it was quite clearly like, she was like, yeah, you're right, that's not a good plan, because if we get found out, then we're in trouble. So that just limits the fun factor for depending on who you're playing with. And on that note, we should remind everyone too.
Well, first we're going to grab our drinks, right?
Yes. Yeah. We've been talking for a while here. I thought we were already at the end.
Actually, yeah, when we forgot. You're right. I'm supposed to remind everybody to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
Okay, so I was on the right direction. And take a look down below in the video description so you will find links to all of our social media feeds. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice, since we played quite a few games. There are plenty.
I was going to say there are plenty of pictures.
Yeah, plenty on our feeds. Also down there is a link to multizone.ca, great Canadian game store. Click that link, get 10% off your next purchase. And it's a great way for you to support the channel, as a portion of that purchase is returned to us. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release. And in front of Julie, when it's available, will be our how to play for Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice. And since we already grabbed our drinks, we're going to remind you to keep playing games.